Pend is best deck. We'll start off by explaining the starters and what they do. So, the effect we most care about is add one Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. That is what we will mostly just be using Kepler for. And that effect is activated on Kepler's normal or special summon. Necro Slime allows us to fusion summon a DDD fusion monster from our extra deck, and we'll banish them from the graveyard. And you must use Necro Slime. And for DD Lamia can send a DD or a Dark Contract from either our hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, except for itself. And that will allow us to special summon this card, but it will banish itself when it leaves the field. So the important thing to know about Lamia is it cannot send pendulum cards if they're on the field. It can if they're in hand, and that includes scales or monsters. Swirl Slime is similar to Necro Slime, but it special summons using monsters by using monsters in our hand, basically like a polymerization. And it also has another effect where it allows you to special summon a DD monster by banishing Swirl Slime from the graveyard. So for example, we could special summon, I don't know, Copernicus. If we have Swirl Slime in graveyard, we could do that. And then we have Cerberus here. The effect we most care about here is it's a scale 6 here, and it allows us to change a DD monster to level 4, which is useful for getting the 2 DD monsters the right level to make a Caesar, which is basically how we do most of our combos in this build. So with Copernicus here, Copernicus is effect is basically a foolish burial for any DD card on normal or special summon. Orthros, we use Orthros to make Baron, and if Orthros is special summoned, you're locked into Fiend type monsters, but that's only on special summon. So if you normal summon and you have Flame King Genghis, then we can just make Baron off of those two. And the Pendulum Effect, we target a spell trap card on the field, and one other DD or Dark Contract card you control, destroy them. So the first card we select when we activate this effect is actually the one other DD or Dark Contract card you control, and then we can target Orthros, for example, as the spell trap card on the field, or one of our opponent's back row, something like that. And if you take battle or effect damage, you can special summon Orthros as well. So you'll probably be special summoning it from hand, if at all, with Gilgamesh's effect or Ragnarok's effect. This one burns you 1,000 here. This one also burns you for 1,000. This effect. So we have Griffin. Griffin is has the effect. Well, Griffin has quite a few effects actually. If you control a DD monster, any DD monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. And if this card is pendulum summoned, you discard a DD or Dark Contract card. Draw one card. If this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can add one DD card from your deck to your hand. So you can't add a contract, but we can use it to add Headhunt. And the Pendulum Effect is also pretty useful as well. I think if when you use the Pend effect, it's mostly going to be in conjunction with Thomas. So it allows you to give a fiend monster 500 attack. But the important thing here is it'll destroy itself if you have a... Well, how to explain this better? Well, you need a deck contract to activate this effect, but then Griffin will destroy itself, send itself to the... Well, it will go to the extra deck face up, and then you will use Thomas's effect to add a face-up DD Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, and then you typically special summon Griffin off of its own effect. And there's also Vice King Requiem here. The important effect that we really care about if you do want to run Vice King Requiem is this effect here. That's soft once per turn, and allows you to just pop a card on the field and shuffle back a Dark Contract card. So if you can get Vice King Requiem on the field multiple times, because Vice King Requiem needs to specifically be on the field and then used as a material for a Fusion Synchro XYZ or Link summon into a DDD monster, then you can gain this effect on the whatever monster you make. I guess, like, for example, if you were to somehow make Siegfried, I guess, I don't know, Dias and Gilgamesh and High King Genghis, then you would technically have 4 pops if you could somehow manage that. So Rage, we're mostly using Rage for its low scale here in this build, so I won't go over its effects too hard. And then we kind of skipped over Ragnarok, so we'll go over Ragnarok's effect. If it's normal or special summoned, you can target one DDD monster specifically, not a DD monster, DDD, triple D, and special summon it. And there's also this effect, soft once per turn, to tribute a DD monster, and then you can target one monster your opponent controls and banish it. And if you special summon a DD monster, except during the damage step, then you can special summon any DD monster from your graveyard, and you'll also be burned for 1,000, and your opponent will take half battle damage. 1 for 1 is a really good card here, because 1 for 1 allows you to special summon from your deck a copy of Kepler, Necroslime, or Lamia, which is very useful in being able to retain your normal summon. So for example, 1 for 1 special summon Kepler, and then you search Gate, normal summon Copernicus, that's very strong. Dark Contract with a patent license. If your opponent special summons a monster, the same card type as a DD you control, you burn them for 1,000, and they cannot special summon monsters of the same type for the rest of the turn. And you can add a DD monster from either your graveyard or your extra deck face up, specifically Pendulum in that case, of course, and then it's added to your hand, and you can only use that effect once per turn, hard once per turn. And then we have Dark Contract with the Gate, which allows us to add any DD monster hard once per turn. And then Dark Contract with a Swamp King allows us to use monsters from basically anywhere aside from our extra deck and scales. So monsters in our hand, field, or graveyard, but if they're in the graveyard they'll be banished. If they're on the field they'll be sent to the graveyard, which includes pens as well. Pens will be sent to the graveyard. And we have a copy of Called by the Grave here, and Forbidden Droplet. Forbidden Droplet I should mention, cannot send pendulum cards on the field to the graveyard, including your scales. You can send pendulum monsters in your hand, though. This is just a really good going second card. I might cut it later, I don't know. Imperm. Imperm might also cut this, honestly, because I end up running out of space by the end of the combo, so I often will just have an Imperm in my hand. But it is still a solid going second card. So DDD Headhunt. We target a face-up monster our opponent controls, and then we take control of it until the end phase of the next turn, and its effects are also negated. So this is basically like kind of like a change of heart. Well, if I could spell, I'd be able to find it, I guess. Wait, change of heart is forbidden. That's why. Whoops. Change of heart. But since we have the negate there, it's also a monster negate, so Headhunt is very good. And then for our extra deck monsters, we have Flame King Genghis, which I will refer to as Small Genghis. So Small Genghis here allows you to special summon a DD monster from your graveyard if you special summon a DD monster. And that's the most important effect to worry about. Oracle King Dark, any effect that would inflict damage to you makes you gain that much life points instead. Well, when you make dark, you make dark. It just happens. And then we have Flame King High Genghis, which I will refer to as Big Genghis. Big Genghis has the same first effect as Little Genghis, but it also allows for normal summons. So if you normal summon a DD monster, you can also use the bring back a monster effect. And there's also this effect, where if your opponent activates a spell trap card, specifically on your turn, you can negate the activation. So I haven't really mentioned it, but we also have Gamma here. Or not Gamma, Omega. And we also have Gamma in this build. So we'll, if we use Gamma's effect on our own turn, we go into Omega and then we'll use its effect, Omega effect. That's to get the Gamma and Driver off the field because we need those zones to do our combo. And instead of running Gamma and Omega, for example, you can run Zeus or Kali Yuga. Both have different merits. Like Zeus will full board wipe, and Kali Yuga only wipes out the spell trap card. Yeah, the spell trap cards. So it's kind of depending on your playstyle, what you run in this case. We have Siegfried here. Siegfried is spell trap card negate. It has to target a face-up spell trap card though. So if your opponent were to say Lightning Storm and then Forbidden Droplet, that plays around Siegfried. So that's something to keep in mind. We have, well, but we also have the ability to play around Forbidden Droplet with Siegfried a little bit. So it's not really going to happen here in this build, but if you had, for example, the one of the contracts, like Dark Contract with the Witch or Dark Contract with the Eternal Darkness. So it would go like chain 1 Forbidden Droplet, and then they would probably send a monster, and then we flip, for example, we activate a Dark Contract with the Eternal Darkness, then we can use Siegfried effect to target the Forbidden Droplet on the field and negate it, for example. Baron de Fleur. We can make Baron de Fleur as our 5th summon in our 3-card combo. And then that will allow us to kind of just go off, I guess. And we also have Wave King Caesar here, Wave King Caesar. There's a lot of text here, but you probably don't need to worry about that effect. If Wave King Caesar is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. This is hard once per turn. Tell has a similar effect, where if Tell is sent, this is basically a Foolish Burial for any DD or Dark Contract card. But none of Tell's effects have hard once per turn anywhere. So you can summon Tell back multiple times and Foolish, for example, Typhon, Necro Slime. So Wave King High Caesar. It's kind of like a Solemn Judgment, but not really. When a spell trap card or monster effect is activated, that includes an effect that special summons a monster. Quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, negate the activation. This isn't once per chain either. So for example, your opponent activates Fusion Destiny, then Gamma. Wave King, wrong one. Wave King High Caesar can negate both of those in the same chain because they have monster effects or effects that special summon a monster, allowing you to negate the entire effect, basically. And another card gains 1,800 attack every time a monster is destroyed by this effect. Wait. No, every time a card is destroyed by this effect, so if it resolves in, like, the graveyard, like, for example, Necro Slime, you can't really destroy something in the graveyard, so you wouldn't gain the attack points, which attack points aren't super relevant all the time, but anyway. And then we have Dias here. We'll only be focusing on the monster effect of Dias here. When a monster effect is well, actually no, the wording's kind of weird. When a monster card your opponent controls activates its effect. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card or destroy a Dark Contract. Then attach that opponent's card to this card as material. So because of that weird wording, it also works on pen cards if your opponent is scaling them. Which is kind of weird, but it's stronger that way, so I'll take it. Gilgamesh effect. If Gilgamesh is special summoned, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for DD monsters. And you also place 2 DD Pendulum monsters with different names from your deck in your Pendulum zones, and you take 1,000 damage. Also, if Gilgamesh is destroyed, it's basically like Waking the Dragon almost. You can special summon a DD from your extra deck or your graveyard. So, for example, if your opponent destroys Gilgamesh by battle or like a card like Raigeki, you can just special summon Flame High King Genghis, trigger Ragnarok, and then that will special summon, for example, Flame King Genghis, and then that will trigger Flame High King Genghis, otherwise known as Big Genghis, to special summon another DD monster, so for example Siegfried, and then that will trigger Small Genghis's effect, and then Small Genghis can summon, I don't know, like maybe Wave King High Caesar, Wave King Caesar, Tell, and if your opponent destroys any of these 3, you'll get a Search or a Foolish Burial as well. So It's a fairly strong effect. Or you could potentially just use it to cheat out Siegfried, so you don't have to special summon Siegfried on that turn, and interrupt some of your opponent's plays. Well, I won't really show it in this video because it'll get too long, but for your one-card combos, you'll be using that contract with the Gate or Kepler. For your 2 cards, you'll probably have Kepler with a different DD, or Copernicus with a different DD, or Griffin with a different DD, or Dark Contract with a different DD. And for the 3-card combo, it's most notably going to be Swirl Slime and Griffin with any DD that isn't named Orthros. And for some backup strats, we will have, if we have Dark Contracts, or maybe not, we can go from Wave King to Tell into Deus, and once we go into Deus, we can technically also go into Zeus, depending on how the turn went exactly. But I mean, assuming you didn't go into Gilgamesh, you could do that and you would end up with, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Mat Zeus. And then if your opponent destroys something on your field, I guess, it would become a 6 Mat Zeus. And that's not bad as a backup strat, but then I think you have 4 Mat Deus. If you just go Caesar, Tell into Deus. There's some rare situations where you might need to do this, but it's just something to keep in mind that you can do it. It's not something you really want to do though, but it's good to keep in mind. So I'll probably be doing, well, I guess, what would you call it? Well, a combo guide, I guess, for DD. Well, don't really know how to end these videos, but, see ya.